I never thought a being could be so immense, like a living tower of strength. He was human, and I was Lyra, a scout from the Klyren Collective. My kind, the Klyren, are diminutive, barely 15 centimeters tall, with translucent, moth-like wings that shimmer in low light and delicate, bioluminescent skin that pulses with our emotions. I've charted gas giants and cataloged beasts larger than starships, but this human, Commander Elias, was something else entirely. Our encounter began in the decaying hulk of an abandoned space station orbiting a forgotten star. My team was scavenging for ancient tech, our sleek, palm-sized drones humming through rusted corridors. The station's air was thin, laced with strange, glittering particles we hadn't yet identified. I remember thinking they were beautiful, like tiny stars trapped in the air, though their purpose remained a mystery. Then, a tremor shook the walls. Not a structural failure, but something deliberate. A voice boomed through our comms, deep and commanding. Unidentified craft, state your purpose or be neutralized. I hesitated, my wings flickering with unease. This is Lyra of the Klyren Collective, 3rd Wing, 7th Squadron, I replied, my voice steady despite the fear creeping in. We are on a scientific expedition to study the station's history and technology. We pose no threat. There was a pause, then the voice returned, firm but with a hint of curiosity. Lyra, this is Commander Elias of the Starship Resolute, United Earth Federation. This station is under our jurisdiction. What exactly are you studying? I glanced at my team, their glowing skins pulsing with anxiety. We seek knowledge of the station's former inhabitants, I said carefully. Their technology could advance our understanding of this sector. We're open to sharing findings if that ensures cooperation. Another pause. Interesting, Elias said, his tone softening slightly. Docket Bay 7. We'll discuss terms face to face. I turn to my team, lower my voice. Should we trust them? They sound imposing. Kale, our tech specialist, shimmered with doubt. They're massive, Lyra. What if they see us as insignificant or dangerous? Mira, our navigator, countered, refusing could escalate things. Meeting them might be our only chance to negotiate. I nodded, my wings fluttering as I weighed their words. We'll go, but stay sharp. Keep the drones on standby. We agreed to meet aboard their vessel, the Resolute, to negotiate access to the station's resources. That decision changed everything. When I first saw Elias, my wings froze mid-flutter. He filled the doorway, a colossus of muscle and resolve. His dark eyes gleamed under thick brows, his jaw carved as if from stone. His hands could easily envelop my entire body. He radiated authority, his presence both daunting and magnetic. My instinct screamed for me to flee, but a strange curiosity rooted me in place. I beat my wings, rising to meet his gaze, determined to face him despite the fear surging within me. Greetings, Commander Elias, I said, my voice steady despite the faint tremble of my wings. I'm Lyra of the Klyren Collective. Thank you for agreeing to meet us. He regarded me with a mix of curiosity and amusement, his lips curving into a slight smile. Welcome aboard the Resolute, Lyra. I must say, you're smaller than I imagined, but I've never met a Klyren before. You're kind. You're remarkable. Your kind is remarkable too, Commander, I replied, masking my awe with a formal tone. Humans are physically impressive. He chuckled softly, the sound deep and resonant in the air. I suppose so, from your perspective, but don't let that intimidate you. We're here to talk, not to threaten. I nodded, though my instincts still urged me to keep my distance. There was something about him, perhaps his confidence or the way he moved, that piqued my curiosity. Despite my fear, I couldn't help wanting to know more about him. We moved to the meeting room, where I observed him discreetly as our discussion began. His movements were precise, almost graceful for someone so massive. His uniform clung to his broad shoulders, hinting at the strength beneath. I had to crane my neck to meet his eyes, his rugged features stark against the delicate, glowing forms of the Klyren. There was a raw, primal intensity in him, a contrast to our ethereal beauty. My skin pulsed brighter, betraying my racing heart. In the meeting room, his voice was steady, each word carrying weight. His hands rested on the table, large and ready like coiled springs. There was a restrained energy in him, a storm waiting to break. "So, Lyra," he began, leaning back slightly, "what do you hope to find on this station?" "We're interested in the ancient technology here," I explained, my wings stirring as I spoke. "There are rumors of advanced systems, possibly related to faster-than-light travel without warp drives. That would be a significant discovery for both our species." He raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. "Faster than light without warp? Ambitious. If true, it could change everything." "Exactly," I agreed, leaning forward slightly. "That's why we're here, and why we hope to collaborate." He studied me for a moment, his gaze sharp. "Collaborate with a species I've never met? That's a big risk, but one that could yield mutual benefits." I pressed, my voice firm despite the size difference making me feel small. "Our technology differs from yours. Together, we could achieve more than either of us alone." He nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. "Perhaps, but I need to know more about your intentions. Why the station specifically?" "It's said to hold the key to understanding the advancements of its former inhabitants," I said, choosing my words carefully. "Their knowledge could enhance our understanding of this sector, and perhaps aid your goals as well." He leaned forward, his dark eyes locking onto mine. "And what are your goals, Lyra? Beyond knowledge, what do the Klyren seek?" I hesitated, my skin flickering with unease. "We aim to preserve and learn from the past, to ensure the mistakes of ancient civilizations aren't repeated. Knowledge is our greatest asset." He considered my words, his gaze softening slightly. "A noble goal, but knowledge can also be a weapon. I need to know you're not here to claim this station for yourselves." "We have no such intention," I assured him, my voice steady. "We're here to study, not conquer. Our kind values harmony over conflict." He gave a faint smile, a touch of warmth breaking through his stern demeanor. "Good, because I'd hate to have to chase you off this station." I couldn't help but smile back, though my heart still raced. "I assure you, Commander, we're not here to cause trouble. We're here to learn, and perhaps share what we find." He nodded, his expression returning to seriousness. "All right, let's hear your proposal." As we delved into the details, I stole glances at him. There was a primal intensity in him, a stark contrast to the ethereal beauty of the Klyren. My skin pulsed brighter, betraying my racing heart. I wondered what it would be like to stand closer, to feel the warmth of his presence. At one point, he caught me staring and smiled faintly. "Something on my face, Lyra?" I flushed, my skin flaring brighter. "No, I was just observing your expressions. Humans have very different facial structures." He laughed, a warm, genuine sound. "And Klyren have skin that's so expressive. It's like you're wearing your emotions on display, or rather, across your whole body." I smiled, feeling a bit more at ease. "It's hard to hide our feelings, I suppose, but it also means we're honest." "Honesty is valuable," he said, his tone turning serious, "especially in negotiations. We hold it in high regard," I assured him. "You have my word that we'll be transparent in our dealings." "Good," he said, extending his hand. "Then let's shake on it. Carefully, of course." I hesitated for a moment, then placed my tiny hand in his massive palm. He closed his fingers gently, surprisingly delicate for someone so powerful. I felt a wave of warmth, a mix of fear and something else, something I couldn't yet name. As our discussion continued, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of something extraordinary. Then chaos erupted. A rogue mercenary band, the Void Reavers, ambushed us, targeting the station's quantum relays. Laser fire and explosions tore through the hangar. My team, small and fragile, was caught in the crossfire. I watched a teammate fall, their wings scorched, their glow fading into darkness. Fear paralyzed me. Our glowing bodies were easy targets. "Kale, Mira, take cover," I shouted, my voice nearly lost in the cacophony of blasts. Kale, our tech specialist, was dragging Mira toward a console, but a nearby explosion sent debris crashing around them. "We're pinned down, Lyra," Mira called, her voice tight with panic as she clutched her singed wing. I gripped my scanner, useless against such violence, my wings trembling as I scanned for an escape. Elias didn't hesitate. He dove into the fray, a whirlwind of strength. "Stay down," he roared, his voice slicing through the chaos like a beacon. "Marines, clear the left flank. Protect the civilians." His crew snapped into action, taking cover and returning fire, but Elias was already a force of nature, hurling mercenaries aside with ease, his size now a weapon. I saw him tackle 3 reavers at once, his fists a blur of calculated force. Yet, his movements were not wild. There was a deadly precision to them, each strike a testament to his skill. "Keep them off the relays," he barked to his team, dodging a laser bolt with a fluid sidestep. It was mesmerizing, even amidst the terror, to watch him command the battlefield. A mercenary lunged toward me, blaster raised, his eyes glinting with malice. I was too terrified to move, my wings frozen as I stared into the barrel of his weapon. I braced for the end, my mind blank with dread. Then Elias was there, his massive frame blocking the shot. The blast seared past me, absorbed by his body, and I felt the heat singe my wings. He staggered but stood firm, disarming the attacker with a single, brutal motion that sent the mercenary sprawling. He glanced back, his eyes softening with concern despite the battle's roar. "You okay, Lyra?" He growled over the din, his voice rough but warm. I nodded, my voice caught in my throat. "Why, yes, thank you." I managed, my heart pounding not just from fear but from the intensity of his gaze. "Stay behind me," he ordered, his tone firm yet protective. "I've got you." I obeyed, hovering close to his towering form, my wings fluttering nervously as he shielded me from the chaos. The battle ended swiftly, the reavers retreating or subdued, their numbers no match for Elias's ferocity. In the smoky aftermath, I saw Elias differently. His size, once terrifying, now meant safety, courage, a fierce drive to protect. He wasn't a monster. He was my savior. As the dust settled, Elias turned to me, his chest heaving, a faint trickle of blood running down his arm from a graze. His uniform was singed, but he stood tall, unyielding. "You're safe now, Lyra," he said, his voice softer, almost tender. I stepped closer, my fear giving way to gratitude and something deeper. "You saved me," I whispered, my voice trembling with emotion. "Why risk so much for us?" He knelt to my level, his face close, his dark eyes locking onto mine. "Because you're worth protecting," he said simply, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "And I don't leave anyone behind." My skin pulsed brighter, betraying my racing heart. I don't know how to thank you," I said, my wings fluttering as I met his gaze. He chuckled, a low, rumbling sound that sent a shiver through me. "Just keep shining, Lyra. That's enough for me." I smiled, a warmth spreading through me despite the wreckage around us. "You're not what I expected, Elias," I admitted, my voice soft. "And I'm glad for it." "Good," he said, standing but keeping his eyes on me. "Now, let's get your team patched up." As we moved to help our teams, checking on Mira and Kale, I couldn't shake the feeling that this moment had changed everything. Elias was no longer just a towering human. He was a protector, a hero, and perhaps something more. Earlier, we had analyzed the station's air and discovered microscopic spores, likely remnants of some ancient experiment. They could trigger growth in small organisms under stress, but we had dismissed them as insignificant. Now, shielded by Elias's towering form, feeling the intensity of his presence, something shifted. The spores, the fear, the adrenaline from the battle, they awakened something within me. A tingling sensation spread through my body, subtle at first, then overwhelming. My wings stretched, my limbs elongated. My glowing skin dimmed slightly as my form grew denser, stronger. My teammates stared, awestruck. "Lyra, what's happening?" Mira exclaimed, her wings trembling with concern as she hovered closer. "Are you growing?" "I think so," I replied, my voice shaky as I looked at my hands, now larger, my fingers longer. The spores, they must be reacting to the stress from the battle. Kale, ever the scientist, scanned me with a handheld device, his eyes widening behind the glowing display. This is unbelievable. Your cellular structure is adapting rapidly. But is it safe? I don't know. I admitted, surprised by the excitement mingling with my fear. But it doesn't hurt. It feels right, like my body is perfecting itself. As the transformation continued, I felt a surge of energy, a strength I'd never known. When it stopped, I stood nearly 70 centimeters tall, still small compared to Elias, but profoundly changed. My wings were broader, my body more robust. I felt alive, vibrant. Elias, who had watched the entire process with a mix of concern and fascination, stepped closer. Lyra, are you okay? He asked, his voice gentle but still commanding. I looked up at him, no longer needing to crane my neck as much. I think so, I replied, a small smile forming. In fact, I feel stronger. Thank you, Elias, for saving me, for protecting us. He knelt to my level, his dark eyes searching mine. No need to thank me. I'd do it again in a heartbeat. But why? I asked, my voice soft but firm. You barely know me. He hesitated, then gave a faint smile. Maybe because you're different, brave, even when you're scared. And there's something about you that makes me want to keep you safe. My skin pulsed brighter, betraying the warmth spreading through me. I never thought I'd say this, but I'm glad you're here. He chuckled, a low, resonant sound that sent a shiver through me. Then we're even. You're taller now, Lyra. Almost half my size. I laughed, a light, slightly nervous sound. Yeah, that's new. I wonder if it'll last. We'll find out, he said, his tone reassuring. But first, let's make sure you're okay. Your team looks worried. I nodded, turning to Mira and Kale, who were still staring at me in disbelief. Kale, get the scanner ready, I said, feeling a newfound confidence. We need to check for any side effects. Right away, Kale replied, though his eyes remained fixed on me. You look different, Lyra. Stronger. I feel it, I said, smiling. But I'm still me. Mira hovered closer, her voice laced with concern. Are you sure you're okay? It's unprecedented. I'm fine, Mira. I reassured her. And I think this might help us. But we need to understand it better. Elias stood, but his gaze lingered on me. You've already made an impression, Lyra. But take it slow. Rest for a bit. We can talk more later. I'd like that, I said, a strange excitement rising within me. Maybe over a meal, like you once suggested? He smiled, his eyes warm. It's a date. And this time, you won't need to climb the table. I laughed, feeling a new connection forming. As we began assisting the others, checking on Mira and Kale, I couldn't shake the sense that this transformation wasn't just physical. It was the beginning of something greater, something I shared with Elias. We talked, first about the attack, then about our worlds. Elias described Earth's golden deserts, vast and shimmering under a blistering sun, where the heat could sear unwary travelers. He spoke of roaring oceans, waves crashing against cliffs with a force that shaped the land, and starlit plains where the night sky unfurled like a tapestry of light, unmarred by artificial glow. On Earth, we have festivals under the stars, he shared, his deep voice tinged with nostalgia. People gather, tell stories, and dance until dawn. Have you ever been part of something like that, Lyra? I smiled, my wings fluttering as I pictured it. On Klyren, we have light ceremonies. When the seasons change, we fly among crystal spires, our glowing skin blending with the world's radiance. It's how we honor our connection to nature. That sounds incredible, Elias said, his eyes bright with curiosity. How do you fly in those ceremonies? Is it like dancing in the air? Something like that, I replied, feeling more at ease. It's freedom, like becoming one with the sky. I'd love to see you dance under the stars, Elias. Are you as graceful as you are in battle? He laughed heartily, the warm sound sending a shiver through me. I'm not sure I could match your flight, but I'd give it a try if you were there to watch. With each word, the barrier of fear dissolved further. His size remained overwhelming, but it felt like a shield, not a threat. I noticed how his muscles shifted as he spoke, the faint scar on his cheek hinting at past battles, and the intense gaze that made me feel truly seen. He listened to my stories with genuine curiosity, asking questions that showed he wanted to understand my world. A connection bloomed, powerful and undeniable. In a quiet moment, our eyes met. His gaze was warm, searching, and I felt my wings pulse brighter, my heart racing. We were flirting, the air charged with possibility. "You know, Lyra," Elias said, his voice lower, "for someone so small, you have a presence that fills a room." I smiled, my skin glowing at the compliment. "And you, Elias, for someone so massive, have a surprising gentleness." I didn't expect that. He tilted his head, his eyes twinkling. "I hope it's a good thing." "A very good thing," I replied, my voice soft but sincere. But then reality intruded. I barely reached his knees, and his hands could envelop me entirely. A touch, a kiss, the simplest intimacies seemed impossible. I imagined his arms around me, my body lost in his embrace, and the logistics felt insurmountable. "It's complicated, isn't it?" I whispered, my glow dimming as doubt crept in. Elias nodded, rubbing the back of his neck, a gesture almost vulnerably human. "Yeah, I'd invite you to dinner, but you'd need a ladder to reach the table." I laughed, but the sound was tinged with sadness. The image of me climbing furniture to sit with him was absurd, yet poignant. "Maybe there's a way," he said, his voice carrying a hint of hope, though doubt shadowed his words. I looked up at him, searching his face. "Do you really think so? I mean, look at us. You're like a giant to me, and you're like a delicate fairy to me," he replied, his lips curving into a small smile. "But that doesn't mean we can't find a way to connect." His words sent a wave of warmth through me. "In our culture, size isn't a measure of worth," I said. "We're small compared to many species, so we've learned to rely on wit and heart." Elias nodded thoughtfully. "That's a good way to see it. On Earth, we often equate size with strength, but I've always believed real strength comes from within. Like you, you've shown more courage than many larger beings I've known." I smiled, a surge of confidence rising. "Thank you, Elias. That means a lot. You know," he continued, his voice softer, "I never thought I'd be sitting here, talking to a Klyren, feeling like this." "Like this?" I asked, my wings fluttering with curiosity. He hesitated, then smiled. "Like I want to know everything about you, no matter how different we are." My skin flared brightly, betraying my racing heart. "I feel the same, Elias. But sometimes I wonder if we can bridge this divide." He leaned closer, his gaze earnest. "I don't know if we can, but I want to try." "Do you?" I nodded, a radiant smile breaking through. "I want to try too." As we continued talking, sharing more about our lives and experiences, I couldn't shake the feeling that despite the challenges, there was something special between us. The attraction was palpable, and though our scales were worlds apart, the spark between us refused to fade. Desperate, we turned to the spores. If they'd changed me once, could they again? In the ship's lab, we prepared a dose of the glittering particles, their faint shimmer catching the sterile light. My team gathered around, their glowing skins pulsing with a mix of curiosity and concern. "Are we sure about this, Lyra?" Mira asked, her wings twitching as she adjusted a scanner. "The spores triggered growth before, but we don't know their long-term effects." "We have to try," I replied, my voice firm despite the uncertainty gnawing at me. "If we can understand what caused it, we might bridge the gap between us and the humans." Kale, calibrating a dispenser, looked up skeptically. "The data suggests stress was a catalyst, but replicating that safely, it's a gamble." Elias, standing by the lab door, his massive frame filling the space, nodded. "I'm with Kale. This feels risky, Lyra. We don't know enough about these spores." I met his gaze, my wings fluttering with resolve. "Risk is part of discovery, Elias. If I can grow again, it could change everything. For us." His eyes softened, but worry lingered. "Just be careful, okay?" I inhaled the first dose, hope flickering as the particles tickle my lungs. Nothing happened. We tried larger doses, then larger still, my team monitoring every change. No cellular response, Kale reported, his scanner beeping softly. The spores are inert without the right trigger. Frustration crept in, but I refused to give up. Think back, I said, pacing the lab, my larger wings brushing the air. The growth happened when I was in danger, when you protected me. Elias's eyes lit with understanding. The spores, the fear, and me. Exactly, I said, excitement rising. The fear from the Reaver's attack, your strength, it all aligned. If danger was the key, could we recreate it? I suggested a risky plan. I'd leap from a platform, and he'd catch me. His face darkened, his jaw tightening. No way, Lyra. You could get hurt. It worked before. I insisted, stepping closer, my glow pulsing with urgency. The fear, your strength, it triggered the spores. That was real danger, he countered, his voice low and firm. This would be a stunt. Too risky. I won't let you put yourself in harm's way. Elias, please, I urged, my wings trembling with determination. We're running out of options. I need to try for us. He hesitated, searching my face, then sighed. Fine. But we do it my way. Safety nets, controlled environment. I'm not losing you. We moved to a training bay. Safety nets strung below, a high platform. My team followed, Mira whispering, "This feels reckless, Lyra." "Are you sure?" "I trust him," I said, glancing at Elias, who was checking the nets with meticulous care. That's the point. I stood on a ledge, my wings trembling. The fear was real, even knowing I was safe. My heart raced as I looked down at Elias, his arms ready below. "Ready when you are," he called, his voice steady but laced with concern. "I've got you, Lyra." I took a deep breath and jumped, the rush of air cold against my wings. Elias caught me effortlessly, his arms a fortress, his warmth enveloping me. For a moment, I felt safe, cherished. But nothing changed. My body remained the same. "It didn't work," I said, deflated, my glow dimming as he held me briefly before setting me down. "Your body knows you're safe," Elias said softly, his hands lingering on my shoulders. "No real threat. I am sorry, Lyra." I shook my head, frustration welling up. "It's not your fault. It's me. I trust you too much." He knelt to my level, his eyes searching mine. "Is that such a bad thing?" "No," I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. "But it means we're stuck like this, worlds apart, even when we're so close." He reached out, his massive hand hovering near my cheek, careful not to overwhelm me. "We'll find another way. I promise." We experimented further, simulated battles, rescue drills, each attempt more elaborate. Kale suggested, maybe we need a different stressor, something psychological? Mira shook her head. "We're guessing in the dark. The spores are too unpredictable." Nothing worked. My body refused to grow. The key wasn't danger itself, but my perception of it. In the Reaver's attack, I believed I could die, yet trusted Elias to save me. Now, that trust, his unwavering protection, canceled out the spore's effect. "It's ironic," I said later, sitting with Elias in the quiet lab, the others gone. "Your strength saved me, but it's also what's keeping us apart." He leaned closer, his voice low. "I'd rather keep you safe than see you in danger again, Lyra. But I hate this distance between us." I looked up, my wings pulsing brighter at his words. "I feel it too. It's like we're so close, yet so far." "We're not giving up," he said, his tone resolute. "There's got to be a way to bridge this gap." I nodded, a spark of hope reigniting. "Together, then?" "Together," he agreed, his smile warm, his gaze holding mine. The attraction burned brighter, yet we were trapped by our physical divide. Still, his words gave me strength, a belief that maybe, just maybe, we could find a way. Still, our bond deepened. We shared stories, laughed, grew closer. The frustration of our barrier only fueled my desire. I refused to let size or fear stop me. I wanted him, not just as a hero, but as a man whose strength and care had reshaped me. I invited him to my quarters, a small space designed for Klyren, where I'd adjusted the lighting to mimic our glowing skies. The air crackled with anticipation, not awkwardness, but the thrill of the unknown. This is different, Elias said, ducking to enter, his voice warm with amusement as he surveyed the tiny furniture. I feel like I'm in a dollhouse. I laughed, my wings fluttering as I hovered to meet his gaze. Welcome to my world, Elias. I hope you don't mind being the giant for once. He grinned, settling carefully on the floor to avoid breaking anything. For you, I'll manage. You've made this place beautiful, Lyra. His words sent a shiver through me, my glow pulsing brighter. We drew closer, his massive hand brushing my arm with surprising gentleness, careful not to overwhelm me. His warmth enveloped me, his breath stirring my wings. You're sure about this? He asked, his voice low, eyes searching mine for any hesitation. I nodded, my heart racing. I've never been more sure. I want this, Elias, with you. He leaned in, his chest a wall of strength, and I felt small yet safe. You're incredible, Lyra, he murmured, his fingers tracing the edge of my wing with a tenderness that made my skin flare. So brave, so you. I smiled, leaning into his touch. And you're more than I ever imagined a human could be. But as the moment intensified, as the possibility of intimacy loomed, fear surged, not abstract, but raw and primal. When I glimpsed the sheer scale of his attributes, my glow flickered in shock. It was as large as my torso. The physical reality hit like a shockwave. I flinched back, a gasp escaping me. Elias froze, his expression shifting to concern. Lyra, what's wrong? Did I scare you? I shook my head, struggling to find words, my wings trembling. It's not you, it's the scale. I didn't expect. My voice faltered, embarrassment mixing with fear. Don't be afraid, Elias said, his voice steady, grounding, as he pulled back slightly to give me space. We don't have to do anything you're not ready for. I hesitated, my glow dimming, then met his eyes. No, I want this. I'm just overwhelmed. But I trust you, Elias. He reached out, his hand hovering near mine, inviting but not insisting. Then let's take it slow. You set the pace. His patience steadied me, and I stepped closer, my fear giving way to a bold resolve. I've crossed stars to be here, I said, my voice stronger. I won't let fear stop me now. He smiled, a mix of pride and affection in his gaze. That's the Lyra I know. This time, fear didn't paralyze me. Instead, a warmth spread through me, not from his touch, but from within. My wings stretched, my body expanded. My skin's glow softened as my form grew denser, stronger. I felt the tingling surge, familiar yet more powerful, as my limbs elongated, my frame solidified. I looked at my hands. They were proportionate, capable, no longer delicate, but resilient. I'd faced my deepest fear, and the spores responded. I'd grown again. Raising my eyes, I met Elias's gaze, now level with his chest. His expression was a mix of awe and joy, his mouth slightly open. Lyra, he started, then laughed softly, shaking his head. You're incredible. I stepped closer, my new height making the distance between us feel less daunting. It worked, I whispered, my voice richer, filled with wonder. Because of you, because I trusted you enough to face this. He reached out, his hand cupping my cheek, now fitting more naturally against my larger form. You did this, Lyra. Your courage, your heart. I leaned into his touch, my glow steady now. And your strength gave me the courage. We did this together. He pulled me closer, his arms enveloping me in a way that felt right, no longer impossible. Then let's make this moment ours, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Words were unnecessary. That night, I discovered human love. I was the only Klyren to know a human man so intimately, and it was the most profound experience of my life. We moved with care, with trust, finding ways to bridge our differences. His gentleness, his strength, his care, they reshaped my understanding of connection. Afterward, we lay together, my wings draped over his chest, his heartbeat a steady rhythm beneath me. Will you tell your team about this? He asked, his voice playful but curious, his fingers tracing patterns on my arm. I laughed softly, my glow pulsing with contentment. Mira and Kale would demand a full scientific report. I think I'll keep this private for now. He chuckled, the sound vibrating through me. Good call. But I want to hear more about those crystal spires someday. Maybe I'll visit Klyren. And I want to see your starlit plains. I replied, my voice wistful. But Elias, what happens now? His expression sobered, his hands stilling. We return to our worlds, Lyra. Duty calls us both. But this, he gestured between us, this stays with me, always. I nodded, a lump forming in my throat. With me too. I'll carry this moment across the stars. We parted the next day, Elias to his ship, me to my team's shuttle. Mira and Kale asked about my new form, their scanners buzzing, but I deflected with a smile. Let's just say I found what I was looking for. I said, my glow bright with memory. Yet I dream of another chance to be with a human man. The connection I found with Elias was singular, transformative, but the universe is vast. Perhaps someone out there is listening, ready to make that dream real.